Okay, so I was holding off of making any video off of the small little tweets that we saw that didn't give the full details. But it's Rob Rossi, a Penguins athletic writer, who gives the entire details of this trade. It's Kasperi Kapanen, Jesper Lindgren, and Pontus Aberg to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for the 15th overall pick. Evan Rodrigues, Filip Hallander, and David Warovsky. This is quite literally a big deal because of the number of assets involved, but the star power of these assets, man, it lies with Kasperi Kapanen. He is a Penguin, ladies and gentlemen. And that shouldn't be too surprising, but it's not 2014. Kasperi Kapanen, one of the very first Jim Rutherford pieces that he acquired as a draft pick, is now back over in Pittsburgh, and it's Jesper Lindgren, who is a 23-year-old defenseman prospect coming back the other way. He's a right-handed guy. He played with the Marlies, 9 points in 31 games. Not super valuable, but there to balance out the scales. Pontus Aberg is a guy who was acquired from Nashville earlier on. He was a really good AHL producer, so that's also going to balance out the scales as well. But the big meat and potatoes here is Toronto getting the 15th overall pick. We know they didn't have a first-round pick because their first got sent over to Carolina in the Patrick Marleau buyout deal. But now they're getting one back, and it's 15th overall. I'm honestly kind of surprised they got a first-round pick for what is essentially a third-liner and some change. But the Leafs are also getting Evan Rodrigues, a guy who has spent time with the Sabres and the Penguins. He was much better with the Sabres, I will say that, as a bottom nine-ish kind of piece. He's 27 years old, he can play all forward positions. We'll see what he does in Toronto next season. They also have Filip Hallander, who is a prospect who played the full season recently in Sweden. He had a pretty good points per game. He had 14 points in 27 games played as a 20-year-old forward. He was drafted in the second round of the 2018 draft. I remember he was a really high-caliber pick that the Penguins were able to pick up a few years ago. But then we also have ourselves David Warovsky, who is coming back in the deal, and he is a defenseman. This may not be the defenseman that the Toronto Maple Leafs were looking for, because that was probably somebody with a little more star power that they wanted, but Warovsky is a 30-year-old left-handed D, 5'9", 170 pounds, who played out of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. He doesn't really play NHL hockey. He's been in the AHL the past 2 seasons, so I think he is just really there to balance out the deal, as we have been saying. But here we have it. It's Kasperi Kapanen, who's gotten traded away for a whole bunch of stuff. And I don't really know what to feel about this. I know that Kapanen's name was on the trade block the entire time. People were speculating whether or not a high-caliber right-handed defenseman could come back. The Leafs needed those defensive struggles addressed on their team, but instead it's a first-round pick, which honestly, it's good value, but in my opinion, I don't know how much you value first-round picks nowadays when the players you select with those first-round picks, especially over here at 15th overall, are not going to be available to your hockey club for the next probably 2 to 3 years. So I don't necessarily know if the right move for trading Kapanen was to get future pieces, especially for a Leafs team that wants to remain competitive now, because what you essentially did with this trade was you technically made your team in the short term worse, because Evan Rodrigues is not as good as Kasperi Kapanen. So we'll see if Kyle Dubas is able to trade away this 15th overall pick for another asset that can help them in the now, because we know they want to remain competitive, we know they want to make the playoffs, we know they want to get past the first round, and this kind of trade is not a trade that helps them do that. So we'll see if they're able to do something else as soon as within the next few months, because the draft is in a little bit. They still have a lot of time to do some other moves, but for now, it's Kasperi Kapanen, Jesper Lindgren, Pontus Aberg for the 15th overall pick, Evan Rodrigues, Filip Hallander, and David Warovsky. That is a mouthful, but that is our deal. I hope you enjoyed this trade. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this whole trade. It's a big one for sure, but such as that Troll 99, and bye.